Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Haris Emmett, and I'm joined by Bree Dangerfield, Ty Wilness, Serena Toe, and Manun Nazir. We are here on behalf of Employment and Social Development Canada to present our plan addressing return to office and social media policies as per the Treasury Board directive, within the broader goal of renewing public service ethics and values. Next slide, please. Our core challenge is the current issues of A, inconsistent RTO enforcement, B, unclear social media guidelines, C, a misaligned office-based strategy, are a result of D, an ethical and values framework that needs modernization. The answer is ethics. Ethics are at the heart of workplace culture, shaping the shared values and behaviors that guide collaboration within a public service tradition of consistency, accountability, and transparency. A strong ethical framework aligned with modern workplace realities will allow ESDC to fulfill both its regional and urban mandate. Next slide, please. Over the past few years, the post-pandemic workplace had reshaped workplace culture, shifting expectations around flexibility, remote work, and employee autonomy. If it weren't for the pandemic, return to office would not be a contested issue. But after years of work from home, employees have adjusted to new norms. Recognizing the shift, the clerk of the Privy Council has called for a renewed discussion on values and ethics across departments. We see this as an opportunity for ourselves to strengthen ESDC's workplace culture, especially since we already have a 79% return to office compliance rate, above the federal average of 74%. However, ESDC aims to increase that compliance further and ensure our practices fully align with the ESDC's code of conduct. Next slide, please. ESDC's mandate of service delivery includes frontline support for rural and Indigenous communities in regional offices. Local governments have emphasized that in-person engagement is necessary to engage with federal workers and deliver effective services. This is supported by a 2023 Canadian Federal Public Service Survey, which found that around 30% of public servants value face-to-face interactions, and 1 in 5 worry about losing workplace culture if remote work continues indefinitely. 62% of public servants, for example, also feel that employees who are attending meetings virtually feel less included than those who are here in the office. As stated previously, ESDC has a higher compliance with the Return to Office Directive compared to other departments. However, there's a disconnect with the consistency, accountability, and transparency of return to office. According to the same public service survey, employees are concerned about office conditions and also perceive low RTO compliance among management, despite the fact that managers are already in the office 4 days a week when aligned with the directive. The Public Service Alliance of Canada, the union, has cited similar concerns, mobilizing 40,000 federal public servants in a petition against R2O within the first week of its implementation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please.
With a 45% increase in ESDC's workforce over the last 10 years, these concerns are understandable. The last OHS audit to happen was in 2016 when ESDC had a much smaller workforce. Since then, the federal government has had a policy of reducing office space, which goes in opposition to the return to office mandate, because there's only 400 buildings in varying condition now used by ESDC. As shown on the map, 29.5% of ESDC's employees work in the National Capital Region, and the rest are in regional offices. In this, 82.6% of ESDC employees are in external service programs, meaning they are directly responsible for client-facing services, and those are services that can't be performed remotely. Next slide, please. Our implementation plan uses goals from ESDC's current 3-year plan. We're going to address an office space audit. Previously, it was focused on accessibility needs. The 3-year plan also focused on accessibility training courses and increased regional services across Canada. The current plan falls short of developing a workplace culture rooted in public service values and ethics. Because of this shortcoming, we're not able to enforce the return to office, ethical social media use, and we're losing a sense of community within our teams. The risk of not updating the 3-year plan is continued return to office non-compliance, public servants speaking out on social media, and a further erosion of ESDC's workplace culture. Next slide, please. So our strategy aligns with what we've heard in ESDC's 2023 internal survey, because for one, consistency is important. Employees are concerned about double standards in return to office, as the implementation and enforcement have not been uniform across ESDC. We're also concerned about accountability because it's crucial for ethical conduct, but employees struggle when there's unclear directives. This is reflected in the survey that shows that 62% of employees want clear distinctions between personal and official use of social media. Finally, transparency is needed because only 66% of respondents felt that senior management upheld ethical behavior. And this is a further decline by 15% from 2022. So this shows that perception of management is waning, but we can correct this with transparent policies and decision making. Consistency, accountability, and transparency is threaded throughout our strategy and a core focus for our success. Next slide, please. So our recommendation is that ESDC strengthens the current 3-year plan with a structured 4-pronged implementation strategy. Our plan tackles the core challenge with employees' concerns in mind. First, the Office Space Revitalization Initiative will optimize workplace environments to enhance productivity and return public servants to office. Second, the Responsible Social Media Governance recommendation establishes clear guidelines balancing professional integrity with public servants' rights. Third, the regional return to office strategy strengthens localized engagement to ensure fair and consistent implementation of return to office policies. Fourth, our ethics and values excellence initiative will modernize training programs to reinforce ethical decision making and workplace integrity. Each of these options are designed to be effective and independently, offering flexibility in implementation. But when combined, they enhance one another, providing a comprehensive solution to tackle the problem at hand. Next slide, please.
Firstly, we will now address the Office Space Revitalization Initiative. And we recognize that the directive to reduce office space is in direct opposition to return to office, as the current space is insufficient in supporting the RTO directive. We're currently seeing a hotel-style office approach, where employees share desks rather than having assigned places, and this takes away from the collaborative approach and diminishes workplace culture and does not encourage public servants to return to office. For instance, one user on Reddit notes that, quote, hot desking definitely helps to stifle workplace culture. I'm wondering whether it's all by design, unquote. This shows that public servants do not feel inclined to physically come to work, explaining the pushback against RTO. As previously mentioned, the last comprehensive audit took place in 2016, yet the ESDC workforce has grown by 45%. There also remains a significant regional imbalance in office space, with some buildings being overcrowded in the National Capital Region, while those in rural areas are largely vacant. It is vital that office space is revitalized, as this is conducive to fostering the RTO directive and public servant ethics. In our proposed initiative, the first phase of our new plan will be to expedite an occupational health and safety audit carried out by ESDC's internal audit services branch that will determine office readiness and space. With immediate implementation of this audit, we expect it to take around 8 months. We suggest deploying teams of 15 auditors for random and scheduled site checks with visits to the 400 ESDC regional and urban offices. The second phase includes a cost-benefit analysis and reallocation of core staff prior to the audit results, which will take about 3 months. We'll evaluate whether ESDC needs additional office space, and we will identify underused federal buildings that can be used to provide additional space for public servants to return to office, as buildings sitting empty are not economical. This will allow ESDC to complete a cost-benefit analysis where we decide whether to expand, lease, or close underused spaces before scaling department-wide. The third phase of this initiative includes regional expansion, which may take up to 12 months. This will include decentralizing office locations to reduce costs and address regional needs. Office spaces in rural areas are much cheaper than within cities or the National Capital Region, which is why we suggest this decentralization. We'll get into the costs here. It's about $50,000 to $60,000 for an audit, and the regional expansion cost will be dependent on the audit results. And a cost of not implementing this new approach is continued RTO noncompliance and a lack of community among ESDC public servants. This plan ensures employees see tangible improvements, making the office more valuable for collaboration and mitigating morale issues tied to potential staff reductions. Next slide, please. For our second option, I will address social media directives and what responsible social media governance is. While the private sector often employs a zero-tolerance policy, we recognize that public servants have freedom of expression, and we seek to balance this right with the Fraser decision. Currently, we are seeing the following issues: low compliance with social media guidelines as set out by the Fraser decision and the expectations of public servants in the Code of Conduct. These restrictions are overly broad, with no clear line between personal and professional accounts or speech. Inconsistent enforcement is also something we're seeing, leading to confusion and anger among public servants about the varying standards they are being held to. With our new suggested plan, Phase 1 will update the ESDC Code of Conduct specifically through the ESDC Center of Ethics and Values, adding restrictions on accessing social media websites from government devices. And this includes blocking certain sites from government devices or limiting access, such as the recent ban on TikTok. We'll also include an ethics session on social media presence for the hybrid work model. With public servants being in office 4 out of 7 days a week, these additional restrictions will ensure that the social media guidelines applied in office are also applied when public servants are working out of office. With immediate revision, we have allocated up to 8 months to ensure that the drafters are able to explicitly articulate these guidelines in a clear manner for public servants. In Phase 2, which will occur 1 month after revision of the ESDC's Code of Conduct, we will communicate the updated guidelines in management-led meetings and events in rural areas to ensure public servants are aware of the restrictions that they are expected to uphold. This ensures our key goal of transparency is upheld. In Phase 3, we will begin full rollout and monitoring of these restrictions, which will occur 1 month after Phase 2. And we will use a trust and verify approach. We will emphasize random spot checks or audits of employees' official accounts. And this will ensure that public servants are held accountable for inappropriate use of social media, yet without unnecessarily strict enforcement that will not encourage public servants to adhere to the new Code of Conduct guidelines. And the cost of this is the opportunity cost of 4 hours per public servant to communicate the conduct revision annually. Next slide, please.
I will continue to present a third option to revitalize our approach to returning to office. Our analysis is that the current RTO compliance is below our target of 85%. We also identified inconsistencies in how policies are applied across staff levels, positions, and regions. In that sense, we mapped out a phased approach to ensure the RTO transition is more structured and systematically executed. This initial phase will stand over an 8-month timeline. We will conduct detailed role assessment by categorizing the public servants who work in external service program into 4 groups: core, support, hybrid, and fully remote. To uphold ESDC mandate of improving the quality of life for all Canadians, we propose to implement the RTO mandates tailored to the needs for positions that are integral to client-facing activities, such as the core positions like client service officers and outreach program coordinators. We will require 4 days in the office for those positions, meeting the June 1st RTO per the directive. For all the roles, the RTO schedule will be determined based on the OHS audit outcomes, like Ty mentioned earlier. Simultaneously, we will initiate bargaining with the unions to ensure that the voices from the regional and rural advisor are heard. This will comply with the Federal Service Directive on the duty to accommodate, ensuring an inclusive workplace. Our goal is to ensure that the role assessments are implemented fairly and consistently across regions and departments. Moving to Phase 2 of the plan, we focus on ethics reinforcement. Every 3 months, we will hold a 2-hour workshop led by the Regional Center of Ethics and Values. These sessions are designed to reinforce our RTO standard and provide a platform for addressing any issues or concerns that arise when we transition back to the office. We will also develop FAQ materials. We want every employee to be confident that their colleagues, regardless of level, role, or location, are being treated fairly. Our final stage in the option is a full rollout of RTO implementation across all roles. This will involve final adjustments based on the feedback from the previous phases and the OHS audit. This is a full-scale rollout to ensure that every member of our public servants is integrated into the new operating framework. By implementing this strategic plan, we acknowledge that there are opportunity costs and operating costs involved. Specifically, we estimate that this amount to 8 hours per public servants per year for in-person ethics relating to RTO strategies, along with operating costs of rolling out the strategy from the centers of ethics and values. Next slide, please. Our final option is to introduce the Ethics and Values Excellence Initiative. This initiative is designed to reinforce our commitment to maintaining the highest standard of ESDC code of conduct. We are facing multiple challenges within our current 3-year action plan that makes this initiative essential. For example, even though ESDC has established essential training curricula in collaboration with the Canadian School of Public Service, many of our public servants still lack a complete understanding of our ethical standards. And ESDCs only provide onboarding ethics trainings. It means that other departments like ECCC, they offer reinforced ethics training every 3 years. We also see gaps in ethical leadership engagement at ESDC. So to address those challenges, we have designed a strategic approach. In phase 1, starting immediately, we're enhancing our training modules. This will be a continued collaborative effort between ESDC, Center of Values and Ethics, and the Canadian School of Public Service. We're tailoring those modules to meet regional and rural needs, and we're also updating our materials, including those concerning RTO and social media use. In phase 2, within 2 months, we are setting a new standard. All employees will be required to participate in values and ethics training every 3 years. This is not just about compliance. This is about promoting a culture of continuous ethical education. In phase 3, we will establish a leadership ethics enhancement program. This initiative will be part of our ongoing collaboration with Institute of Public Administration of Canada, IPAC. Our leaders are fully engaged so that they can play a key role in passing the values and ethical standards to their teams. We estimate the opportunity cost of this initiative about 8 hours per public servants every 3 years, in addition to the operational expenses of upgrading the CSPS training modules and the partnership with CSPS and IPAC. Next slide, please.
The inconsistencies in return to office enforcement, unclear social media policies, and a misaligned office space strategy stem from a broader need to modernize ESDC's ethical and values framework. Our 4 pillars of office space revitalization, social media governance, phase RTO, and at the root of it, a clear ethics and values, each present a viable option to address these challenges. Given the interconnected nature of all these challenges, the preferred option is to implement all 4 together. The risk of not implementing this plan is continued service disruptions in local offices, a loss of public trust, inadequate working conditions, and a lack of workplace culture. While this plan is designed for long-term sustainability, we acknowledge some key risks. 1, union pushback. Focusing on the workplace culture component, we can mitigate this. By doing early bargaining with unions, phase implementation, and transparency in discussing workforce adjustments, we mitigate the risk of union pushback. Second, budget constraints. We mitigate this as we address this through phased closures, reusing vacant federal properties, optimizing office utilization to balance those cost savings with the service delivery. And third, perception. The trust in government by public servants, or in other words, the trust in government by public servants. This is mitigated as the Code of Conduct updates clarify employees' off-duty responsibilities. That's alongside structured oversight mechanisms and a clear communication of progress on these rollouts. At its core, it's a question of ethics, and the answer is ethics as well. By modernizing ESDC's ethics and values framework, we ensure a consistent, accountable, and transparent workplace culture, enabling ESDC to deliver on its mandate of service delivery while strengthening public confidence. Thank you. At this time, we're happy to take any questions.
I am led to believe that you guys are newbies and you're not here regularly. I wanted to congratulate you. It's incredible what you guys done in a week, especially since you haven't been involved in this that often. I'm now first time or two, so I can see all the incredible work you guys have put in. So really congratulations, really good work. and very, very thorough. I'm gonna pass it on to my ESDC senior management colleague, Suzanne.
Thank you, Noah. Thank you very much. Your presentation was very informative, and thank you for the time and the work you put into that. I just want to focus on your discussions around the Values and Ethics Code of Conduct and how you want to strengthen that and ensure that it's aligned with the changing perception. So if you could just speak to me a little bit about this dynamic of the directive as written, where any comment from a public servant with reference to a position taken by the government. So any comment by the public servant, regardless of whether it occurs during their work hours or in their personal time, will be in non-compliance with the directive and met with disciplinary action. So can you speak to how that will be incorporated into your revisioning of the Values and Ethics Code and the ESDC Code of Conduct?
Thank you for your question, Suzanne. Absolutely. So one thing that we, of course, noted was the Fraser decision, where it was noted that public servants have a duty, of course, to not speak poorly about the government and about the policy of that government. And so part of our plan is, of course, we're going to do that three-phased approach of revising, communicating that to public servants about that revision, and then we will do the full rollout and monitoring. And the reason we took that trust and verify approach is so that we can slowly work towards compliance. We don't want to roll something out and it be completely strict within one moment. This will cause problems within the public service. And we want to promote this ethical culture. Ethics is at the center and ethics is the answer. So promoting this culture, we need to do that trust and verified approach. So slowly we will work towards that full compliance, and disciplinary action will be considered after that. But we wanted to consider and give public servants the time to get used to these new initiatives, to get used to that before we do any strict compliance.
Thank you. Let me just follow up, please, Noah. So what you're saying is that there will be, you will hold in abeyance the enforcement until you've gone through the trust and verified understanding. So the directive will be on pause?
That's correct. Yes, yes. So we won't immediately implement that directive because we feel that it's better. Yeah.
If I may, I would like to hop in here as well. Thank you again, Suzanne, for that question. One key thing that we realized in this research is that the code of conduct in the ESDC can be changed within the department, obviously with union bargaining. The ethics and values code, because it is a public service wide values code, it is a difficult one to change. So our role in this is also changing the code of conduct so employees have a clear place that they can look when they have questions. Does this violate the code of conduct? We also have those FAQ sheets, which will include information on what things can I speak about on social media. Does this policy impact me? Am I working on this policy, and so can I speak about it? We've also aligned this with the PSAC union recommendations on public servants' use of social media, where they speak about tone and they speak about what the policy that you are criticizing and if you're identifying yourself as a public servant. These are different things that will be addressed within the code of conduct so that employees know what their role is as a public servant, and then also when they're out of the office.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Noah.
Thanks so much, Michael. Another panel member. Do you have a question for the group?
Thank you, Noah. Yes, I do. Sorry, I had to get my mute button off. Great presentation. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed listening to your observations and your recommendations. I was quite impressed with the fact that you went to office revitalization as part of this strategy, and clearly you see that as being an integral part of making the office workplace more attractive to people who might otherwise be reluctant to go. I thought that was a good tactic. But it did raise for me a bit of a concern, and that is that these are tough times. We're dealing with austerity measures across the government of Canada. and that we're not exactly flush when it comes to having resources to invest in our workplace. And I don't know what your sense of that is, but what is the likely financial feasibility of us to be able to revitalize our work offices, make them more attractive in the manner that you've described? I just wanted to get your sense of those puts and takes.
Thank you for your question, Michael. So part of the initiative that we can highlight is the cost benefit analysis. So firstly, there would be that audit happening so we can assess the office space, but it doesn't necessarily mean at that point that we will be expanding. And we want to note specifically that 270 out of 382 office buildings that are a part of the ESDC are only partially occupied right now. And 79 of these are in Western Canada. So we see a low attendance rate in some places and a high rate in other places. So we're looking to fill those gaps. So we're looking to, if we need to shut down certain facilities, or shut down certain offices and open new ones elsewhere, we believe that that will nicely balance the budget. So we do believe it's financially feasible.
Thank you very much.
Nancy, you have your hand up. Fire
I
away.
do. I do. I'm asking for the opportunity to chime in again because your presentation was very engaging, and I'm very appreciative of your four-pronged strategy. And I'm just going to invite a little bit more contemplation around the social media directive and how that relates with the return to the office side of things. And so I know in the slides that follow on, when you introduce that four-pronged implementation strategy, you go into your phased approach with respect to all four of those prongs. And I'm very interested just to have you expand on the analysis that you may have worked through as it relates to the nexus between the return to office planning and that, in essence, shutting down of social media interactions. So just invite you to share some of the thoughts around the interaction between those two parts of your strategy.
Thank you for your question, Nancy. I think it's a great question because the integration of four strategies within a bigger comprehensive strategies is also a struggle that we have thinking a lot about. And our analysis is that we see the gaps in the current 3 years action plan by ESDC, and we also listen to what the employees are voicing their concerns. We see that 62% employees want a clear direction between personal and official social media use, and they also feel that their senior management upheld ethical behaviors like declining in the engagement in senior management in ethics relating to their social media and return to office. So with the analysis, both from their directives and the voice of the employees, we believe that there should be a phased approach so that we can implement on each other. For example, if we have an audit result from the office, we will ensure the employees that we have enough space, not just space, but functional space, that they feel like they urged to go back to work. They don't feel like they need to voice their concerns on social media anymore. And we want to also make sure that they have channels. We have town halls, we have forums, we have workshops by the Centers of Ethics and Values so that they can voice their concern about the regional and local issues specifically. So by combining rooted in ethics and values, we want to make sure that the strategies will be implemented based on analysis and based on the understanding of our employees and the consultation with the unions.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I can go in quickly since we have half a minute left.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll be really quick. I note that the premise, the answer is ethics. I get that, and all the slides are relate to ethics somehow. Service delivery was mentioned orally at the beginning and the end, but I just wanted to point out that customer service is a public sector value. It's the first sentence actually of the Values and Ethics Code, is that public service have a fundamental role in serving Canadians. I want to know if you want to say anything about that, since the whole genesis of this issue relates to customer service, including the minister's concerns about service to the public.
In 10 seconds.
Yeah, you're completely right about that. I think at the core of the issue is not just these policy challenges of RTO and social media, but also the ethical challenges. The public service operates on these foundations, which include accountability, transparency, and consistency to Canadians, and we try to fold that into our plan. And so one of these cores is customer service, and we're hoping to, customer service is built into this plan. So as service delivery is built in throughout all three: return to office, office-based, social media use. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for our team providing us with some advice.